How can Jimmy Kimmel live with him? Like, Jimmy Kimmel is a talented guy, and I don't think he's like an evil person or something, but he's made this deal where he just serves power and attacks anybody who challenges power. Like, how can, honestly, how can he look in the mirror and say, I'm doing something honorable? Like, how can he live with himself? How can his wife sleep with him?
Well, it'd be...
I mean,
Yes, hypocrisy is alive and well amongst these sanctimonious leftists. From Kimmel to De Niro to Stephanopoulos, they want you to believe they're better than you, more virtuous, more decent. But we all know the truth.
Happens when Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly join forces like the Fox News Avengers on a caffeine spree. Pure chaos, laser-focused on Jimmy Kimmel's ego. One moment he's making jokes, and the next he's deflecting fiery verbal attacks from two eyebrow-raising pros. It's like watching a roast where Jimmy didn't realize he was the guest of honor. You won't believe the zingers unless your TV can survive secondhand embarrassment. Strap in, because this meltdown is messier than a Real Housewives showdown.
You know how much it costs to produce Jimmy Kimmel's show? I guarantee you it's tens and tens of millions. It could be as much as 100 million. I have no idea. You know how much Tucker's video cost? Nothing. You know how much Jimmy Kimmel, how many people he gets tuning in on an average night? Just last week, his average was, in the overall, meaning all viewers, 1.5 million. In the key demo, 236,000. Tucker would have been embarrassed to pull that on any night he was on the Fox News channel. That's what they're getting now. Tucker's numbers were 3 times what Jimmy Kimmel gets. And Tucker's little basement video that he did from clearly like his cabin that he broadcasts out of Maine in literally has 21 million views. Okay? 21 million views. Whereas, as I point out, on ABC, a massive network that comes into your home for free, that you have to make no effort to find, at best, Jimmy Kimmel can get 1.5 million. He needs to have a little self-perspective before going out there and hurling these insults because he looks a little...
Somewhere between a smirk and a smug eye roll, Jimmy Kimmel got flattened, not by some internet troll in their mom's basement, but by 2 ex-Fox News stars who didn't even name-drop him. Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, completely unaware of each other's agendas, somehow teamed up like synchronized sharks circling the same wounded fish. And the kicker? Kimmel never even stepped into the ring.
The way of treating each other equally is joking about each other indiscriminately. So yeah, I think comedians who, and this is why so much of comedy is not funny today. It's my chief criticism of like late night comedy, which I find unwatchable. I think it's totally unwatchable.
But also contemptible. I mean, they're collaborators.
They're just like the fact checkers, they're guardians of...
Tucker Carlson, the high priest of anti-establishment rants, left Fox News and people acted like he'd been abducted by aliens. There were montages, conspiracy theories, and more wild guesses than a hurricane season forecast. But he didn't disappear. No, he transformed. He became something between a libertarian podcaster and a verbal flamethrower. Setting up camp online, he turned on the camera and started delivering monologues like a Bond villain with a vendetta against media fluff and late-night egos.
We'll tell you, he's not the worst. The Daily Show has the worst ratings. They only have 366,000 people watching that show. During the Jon Stewart years, it was over 2 million. Now it's down to 300,000. Seth Meyers, absolutely dreadful. He doesn't even have 1 million, 778,000. I mean, for network television, this is, you don't have to pay for it. It's there when you turn on your TV. You plug it in. That's a dreadful number. Greg Gutfeld on cable, which you do have to pay for, it has more than double the numbers of Seth Meyers. Jimmy Kimmel, 1.5 million, averaging. Also equal.
While he never directly targeted Kimmel in his monologues, the shade was palpable. Tucker's irritants include virtue-signaling comedians, self-righteous media elites, and smug Hollywood types pretending to represent the masses. Basically, he's allergic to everything Kimmel has become. The late-night host who once mocked drunk celebrities but now delivers long political sermons in tailored suits, looking like he's about to lecture the nation.
Comedian and to do that, but his job is to be he's supposed to be funny, and comedians are supposed to hold people in positions of power accountable. Yeah,
the people in charge.
Exactly.
He's their Praetorian Guard.
Yeah,
and it's like the self-hatred he must feel because he wasn't always. That's my point. Yeah. I mean, Colbert has always been a hard partisan. Talented guy, but obviously he's not a comedian. But Kimmel was a comedian. Like, how does he? I don't understand.
I don't know
how he can sleep.
He might buy into the narrative to the extent that he thinks it's morally wrong to joke about these these certain topics.
But it's not just that. He's like pouring hot oil on the peasants from the parapet. Like he's hurting anyone who challenges the king.
Carlson's critique wasn't aimed at Kimmel alone, but at the entire genre of late-night comedy. He tore apart its tone, elitism, and detachment, dragging the whole scene through the mud. Kimmel became a stand-in, not because Tucker cared about him specifically, but because he fit the critique perfectly. Tucker's comeback wasn't a revival. It was a hostile takeover of attention. His online videos spread not due to flashy production or celebrity guests, but because he voiced what many Americans thought but didn't dare say. Among those frustrations, late-night hosts turning from comedians into moralizing lecturers. Enter Megyn Kelly. On a parallel digital front, she was dismantling mainstream narratives with sniper precision. After burning bridges at Fox and NBC, she re-emerged unfiltered, armed with a microphone and a mission to expose hypocrisy like a prosecutor who skipped dessert.
Last night was the 96th Academy Awards show, and while you might have missed it, there was one clear winner. No, not Oppenheimer. It was sanctimonious leftists for their lead role in pretending they are better than you. Winner number one, Jimmy Kimmel. For the fourth time, Kimmel hosted the Oscars before an adoring crowd of Hollywood stars who laughed and curried favor with the man who wore blackface so many times. Yes, some of the very same celebrities who wanted you to believe they were horrified after yours truly said in 2018 that people used to don dark makeup in order to imitate well-known black celebrities, and it was.
Unlike Carlson, Megyn wasn't throwing grenades at an entire genre. Her approach was surgical, her weapon of choice being cultural analysis. When she skewered Hollywood's performative virtue, it felt like a caricature of Jimmy Kimmel was forming. She didn't need to say his name. The comparison was clear, the host who turned his show into a TV talk with a laugh track. Megyn wasn't just irked by what late night had become, she was offended by its self-importance. Her critique targeted those moralizing on TV while ignoring glaring contradictions. Kimmel's stage, once a comedy club, now resembled a pulpit, and Megyn was the skeptic rolling her eyes in the back row. Her audience, weary of preachy entertainment, found solace in her sharp, biting commentary, a refuge for those longing to laugh at absurdity. Together, Tucker and Megyn's unplanned commentary created a storm, with Kimmel caught in the middle, much like a man holding a kazoo during a royal funeral. Silence became his loudest response, a near-poetic irony.
Just this past 2 weeks, they had the Kennedy Center honors the other night where Joe Biden couldn't say Dionne Warwick. He kept calling her Diane, and he didn't know who Barry Gibb was. He kept calling him Billy. You know who else was honored at the Kennedy Center? You know who else? Billy Crystal. Just FYI, do you know who once opened up the Academy Awards in full blackface?
Oh,
Billy
yeah.
Crystal. Billy Crystal. And do you know who's going to be hosting the Academy Awards this year? Jimmy Kimmel. Do you know who's worn blackface repeatedly and spoken inner city sort of urban accent saying she needs to darn those socks? Jimmy Kimmel as Oprah, as a fat-suited, black-faced darning socks.
What happens when Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly, two contrasting personalities, unintentionally dismantled Jimmy Kimmel's polished persona without even meeting? Tucker, the Molotov cocktail in a suit, throws chaos like a daredevil auditioning for intellectual stunts. Megyn, the precise assassin, calmly delivers sharp critiques like she's dissecting bad wine over brunch. Different methods, same outcome. Kimmel's moral compass wobbled like a Jenga tower in an earthquake. This wasn't orchestrated. No smoke-filled room strategizing a takedown. Tucker launched into existential rants on hypocrisy, while Megyn methodically dismantled Hollywood's echo chamber. Kimmel, oblivious, didn't notice the cracks until the floor gave way. Once the fun, carefree prankster, he'd shifted to a judge in a row, trading his class clown act for moral authority.
Even the quote comedians, they were on propaganda duty too. Watch this.
He's also pushing U.S. intelligence to find evidence for this theory that the virus was accidentally released from a lab in Wuhan. That's his new angle to feed the wingnuts, to treat this virus like it was a conspiracy of some kind.
It should have never happened. This plague should never have happened. It could have been stopped. But people chose not to stop it.
What people? Tomorrow he'll blame the Spanish flu on Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. Imagine if you're a comedian and all of a sudden your cue card has all kinds of talking points from politicians and foreign governments on it. Don't read it. You degrade yourself and you become complicit in the greatest crime.
Suddenly, Kimmel wasn't just joking. He was delivering moral judgments, blending a laugh track with lectures. Fans noticed, gradually, subtly, through passive-aggressive YouTube comments asking, "What happened to this guy?" Enter Carlson and Kelly, not as rivals but as cultural catalysts. Tucker's videos mocked mainstream elitism, embodying the frustration of those tired of Kimmel's over-sincerity. He didn't need to name Kimmel. The critique fit perfectly. Meanwhile, Megyn's surgical critiques of hypocrisy resonated with viewers disenchanted by moralizing comedians. She wasn't overtly targeting Kimmel, but the alignment was unmistakable. Her audience saw through the late-night facade, identifying Kimmel's shift as a textbook case of forgetting where the punchline goes.
Monopolist into the evening Academy Awards broadcast with Kimmel and ABC elevating, the blackface loving Kimmel. They, at the same time, fired Chris Harrison, host of The Bachelor, for trying to defend one contestant on The Bachelorette for saying, "Gee, I know I went to this antebellum party, a couple years ago. I guess I didn't see anything wrong with it." And all he said was, "Are we judging her by today's standards, or are we judging her by, old standards?" Whatever. He was basically trying to say, are we being too hard on her? Got fired. Chris Harrison has to be fired by ABC. I don't know why, because he's not a committed leftist, because he's not out there more saying all the terrible things about Republicans that Jimmy Kimmel says. So this is them saying, we get it. We're an ally. Right? And I guess maybe they're trying to make up with their racist past without ever.
This wasn't just about two media figures venting. It reflected a larger cultural shift. Late night used to feel universal. A space where Jay Leno, Letterman, or Conan could entertain anyone without alienating audiences. Now, it's a minefield, and Kimmel's the last player pretending it's still hopscotch. Carlson and Kelly embody a resistance to this new climate. Tucker thrives on chaotic energy, mocking mainstream smugness with a told-you-so smirk. Megyn offers a controlled burn, dissecting celebrity hypocrisy with precision. Together, they shaken Hollywood's late-night hierarchy, not through direct attacks but by fueling a quiet exodus from Kimmel's preachy tone to content that feels authentic, funny, and free of sanctimony.
A comedian is not so different from the job description of a journalist, as traditionally constituted. Tell the truth about the powerful. Comedians are usually a lot smarter, more clever, and incisive than journalists, but that's what they're supposed to be doing. Almost none still do. Adam Carolla is one of the very few remaining comedians in the United States. He's out with a new book called Everything Reminds.
Irony is that none of this stems from direct conflict. Carlson and Kelly are reacting to a cultural archetype that Kimmel now personifies. If he engages, he validates their critique. If he stays silent, it amplifies the point. Either way, his brand, once playful mischief, now feels like a counselor awkwardly trying to be relatable. Meanwhile, audiences are shifting, finding solace between Carlson's chaotic critiques and Kelly's precise takedowns. Tucker's viewers prefer Barnes studio rants over polished late-night skits, while Megyn's fans seek someone who calls out the emperor's wardrobe without pretension. At the intersection of these shifts, Kimmel stands like a bystander as the cultural bulldozers roll through.
They saw what we saw. They saw the frail elderly man who needed help getting off the stage. They're just too chicken shit to tell us about it, because they accurately deduce that he could still be the Democratic nominee, and they don't want to ding him up. Maybe you give Barbara a pass. Who gives a damn what this singer saw or says? But you know what? Jimmy Kimmel happens to be employed by ABC, which happens to have a rather large news organization. And he has been one of President Trump's most vocal critics. Where are you, Jimmy? On vacation? Not good enough. You can still use your thumbs to send out a tweet. You could set the record straight right now.
Jimmy kept at it, waving cheerfully from a ship that was clearly sinking, ignoring the lifeboats paddling away. The whispers grew louder. Late-night ratings were no longer untouchable. Once the gold standard of pop culture influence, these shows now resembled relics from an era when audiences endured commercials. Meanwhile, Tucker and Megyn were climbing the ranks of digital relevance. Kimmel's hold on the comedy crown began slipping like a greased bowling ball. It wasn't that he had suddenly stopped being funny. It was that the audience had changed. The room was different, the landscape was noisier, and while Kimmel clung to the script of cultural superiority, Carlson and Kelly rewrote the rules. One thrived on chaos, the other precision, yet both shattered illusions as they went. Kimmel became less a figure of comedy and more a symbol of a media moment where everyone took themselves too seriously. Punchlines now required annotations, and laughter came with conditions. Tucker and Megyn didn't just critique this, they demolished it, exposing its flaws with a precision that turned late night into collateral damage. Kimmel, whether he liked it or not, became the case study for everything they rejected.
A lot of people who are like on your side because they're for free speech, who are not actually for free speech at all, who are pushing, a very specific foreign policy agenda, for example, and using another issue to lower your defenses and let themselves into your brain. And I think that's really sinister, really, really, really sinister. And it's becoming more obvious now.
And through it all, Jimmy never hit back, not because he couldn't, but because how do you respond when the critiques aren't personal but painfully accurate? There was no debate, no showdown, just two former anchors dismantling the scaffolding of Kimmel's late-night throne. Once at the center of political comedy, he now seemed like the guy who showed up to a party years late, holding a joke no one found funny anymore. Tucker, ranting from his barn, and Megyn, armed with relentless logic, didn't need the traditional stage. They built their own. Kimmel, meanwhile, stayed on his, adjusting the lights and wondering why the applause had thinned. His monologues tried to keep the flame alive, but the torch had already passed to voices unconcerned with approval from elites or polite chuckles from studio audiences. They wanted something raw, blood, or at least honesty. In the end, Jimmy Kimmel wasn't defeated by confrontation or name-calling. He was undone by irrelevance. He didn't lose a fight. He wasn't even in one. He simply stood in a cultural spotlight that dimmed without warning. The viewers left, the laughter faded, and somewhere in the digital ether, Carlson smirked, Kelly shrugged, and Kimmel straightened his tie for a crowd that had already vanished. No mic drop, no dramatic finale, just the echo of a takedown that wasn't meant to happen, but looked inevitable once the smoke cleared.